And now, this.
Okay, let's go. Harry Tracy.
Harry Tracy! Trigger warning. The following contains the authentic accounts of factual historical figures and events. If historical information may upset you, then please withdraw now. Retreat.
Well, I guess you know who I am.
Harry Tracy is a true story. This telling is authored from sources spanning over 120 years. All characterized quotations are verbatim from interviews, newspaper articles, and testimonials taken at the time. Scott Martinez. Part 2. Harry who?
Harry Tracy!
Ultimately, it became an irrelevant fact, Harry's real name. It was Tracy who became infamous.
He took his last name, Tracy, from a neighbor of his. Tracy. No, Tracy was Harry's middle name. Adopted Tracy as his last name to protect his family's good name, Severance. The place of his birth has never been definitely determined, but it was reasonably certain that it was either Louisville, Kentucky, or Dutchess County, New York. Harry was born along the Hudson River, not far from Newburgh. Born in the little hamlet of Dodge City, Kansas. Believed to be born in Poughkeepsie. Connection to the notorious Deer Creek Gang. Terrorized Cincinnati about 15 years ago, but his early days were spent in New York.
Harry Tracy's given name and place of birth were repeatedly misreported and flat-out fictionalized in deficit of actual and easily verifiable information.
Extreme cruelty marked Tracy even as a boy. No ordinary outlaw. Tracy fails to walk into trap fixed for him.
Sensationalistic stories created for market appeal abounded in the newspapers at the time and in dime novels for decades. When Harry Tracy was incarcerated in the Oregon State Prison, Harry reportedly wrote home faithfully, maintaining correspondence with his mother and soliciting his well-placed grandfather, James Quick Severance, for help getting him released from prison, but to no avail. Difficult to believe that the authorities did not know, if not quickly learn, his real name, Harry Severance. But it was common for criminals to be incarcerated under an assumed name, or names. Stuart H. Holbrook verifiably gave Harry Tracy's correct birth date and place, writing in the 1930s. Harry was from Wisconsin.
Wisconsin!
Pittsville, Wisconsin.
Welcome to Pittsville!
Where Harry Tracy was born. Harry Severance, the son of Orlando and Sarah Severance, who were married January 12, 1873. Harry had a younger brother, Irvy, who was known as a delinquent, and a younger sister who died as a youth. Sarah, Harry's mother, was an Atkinson, an affluent family from Sturgeon Bay.
Oh, Harry was thoughtful of his mother.
Emma Goodwin Smith, a childhood friend of Harry's.
Especially when his little sister, when she died.
Interviewed in 1977.
Harry's mother was a mean woman. Very stern-looking.
Minnie DeRosa, also interviewed in 77.
She was a big fat woman. She was a terrible jealous type.
Harry consistently wrote his mother from prison and made the same effort, even when on the run. July 3rd, 1902. Almost a month after Tracy shot his way out of the Oregon State Prison.
Sensational outbreak at the state prison.
Harry held a hostage, a Miss Van Horn, an older woman, at 5011 Finney Avenue Northwest.
I never held up a woman before.
Escaped convict and blood-soaked bandit asked Miss Van Horn, his elderly hostage, if she would write to his aunt.
They will be sorry to hear I've been doing such things, but I had to.
To inform his mother.
Tell my mother I am now at liberty.
Many residents remember Harry as a bright and intelligent boy.
read a Pittsville paper in 1902. In 1934, in the Portland Oregonian, a schoolmate had described Harry as a dull yahoo who stood practically at the bottom of his class and skipped school whenever he dared. When Harry was a young teen, his father, Orlando, a logger, abandoned the family.
Orlando left because his wife was a big domineering woman who drove him away.
Orlando ran off with funds he'd collected as an elected treasurer in an effort to build a local school.
Oh, he took a wagon load of vegetables and a team of oxen. He headed for Superior, farther north. He never returned.
Later, while working as a section foreman on the railroad in Kansas, Orlando was using a rail pushcart and was killed by an oncoming train.
Benefit of Mrs. Severance, the lady whose husband was killed on the Santa Fe a few mornings since. He left neither property nor money.
Harry spent considerable time with his grandfather, James Quick Severance. James Quick was an early settler of Wisconsin, arriving 1849. He'd served in the Civil War and then was a justice of the peace for about 20 years, was on the Pittsville Town Board, and was also the town clerk. Just a month before James Quick Severance died, July 1902, a venerable and respected citizen, his grandson Harry had become infamous in his fourth jailbreak.
Tracy ends his own life, uses his gun to cheat the gallows.
The family worked hard to keep that news from James Quick. It was common practice for outlaws to change their names or use an alias, a nom de plume or handle. Butch Cassidy was actually Robert Leroy Parker, Harry Longenbaugh, the Sundance Kid, and so on. A childhood friend reported that Tracy was his middle name, but he possibly took the name from a man he'd worked for as a youth, Mike Tracy, a neighbor of Harry's parents, who does appear in the 1895 census. Regardless, Harry Severance became Harry Tracy, the name he gave at his first recorded encounter with law enforcement.
Harry stole $2.
We're never sure that he stole the $2, but he did.
And then he went into town,
Did want and went to town.
got in a bar fight, and badly hurt a guy. When taken to court, his name was Harry Tracy. Pleaded self-defense. Cleared of the charge.
Oh, he was cleared of the charges, and then Harry, he went west.
I am Tracy. As a youth, Harry had worked as a camp cook and then a logger. Shortly after that, on the railroad in Wisconsin, and travel west he did. Hollis B. Foltz, billed as a veteran criminologist and newsman, writing in 1956 for the Spokesman Review.
Tracy first came into the news on the West Coast following an unsolved murder on First Avenue in Seattle, 1896, a time when Tracy was a student fireman of the Northwest Pacific Railroad. While on the run, Tracy continually declared he had deep contacts in Seattle.
Don't worry about that, buddy. In Seattle, I'm among friends. They can't catch me in Seattle.
Knew Tracy well.
Frank Donnelly, former foreman of the Union Pacific Railroad.
Worked with him on the railroads in the Northwest. Lines out of Seattle, Spokane, and Helena.
The Seattle Post-Intelligencer, July 19th, 1902. Years before Harry Tracy would become the infamous escaped convict holding up homes and terrorizing entire cities, Harry lived and worked in the Northwest. He'd been a logger north of Spokane into the winter of 1896, notably living in a cabin on Loon Lake.
Tracy worked for old man Dunlop, winter of 1896-97.
Archie Swope, retired postmaster at Loon Lake, interviewed in the 1960s for Spokane's Spokesman Review.
Tracy's cabin!
Later became a tourist attraction, complete with boat tours, until it burned down in the late 1920s during a 4th of July celebration. A Loon Lake legend declares that Harry, having an affair with a married woman, was cornered in the cabin at gunpoint.
There he is, get him!
It being winter, the lake being covered in ice, Harry made his escape, running away over the frozen lake in only his Union suit. J.W. Dunlop, Harry's employer, declared Harry was still owed wages.
He shows up again, I'll pay him.
Many women would later claim to have been consort to Harry Tracy, and more than a handful to be his wife. The newspapers were constantly eager to link him romantically.
Planned escape, several years. While in prison, Tracy wrote to his wife to send him a revolver and tools inside of a ham.
By the winter of 1897, Harry was in Butte, Montana.
Tracy frequently came in here and was a quiet sort of fellow.
Harry Peterson,
who would never give off the impression that he was a desperate criminal.
Bartender of the M&M Saloon.
He had many friends in the city, and some of them are here now. He used to play the races in the pool rooms frequently when he was here, and he had plenty of money at all times.
Harry later bragged to a captive that he and 2 accomplices had once robbed 5 banks in quick succession.
Yeah, but I had to give up my share to protect my pals.
Historian Stuart Holbrook reported, "For a time, Tracy was a minor stooge in the Powder Springs, or hole-in-the-wall gang, operating along the northern border of Colorado."
Tracy and other gunmen robbed banks and raided ranches throughout 1897. Tracy's base was the notorious Hole-in-the-Wall. Harry Tracy, mad dog of the wild bunch. Tracy was a cold-blooded fighting machine, a superb marksman, a gunfighter extraordinaire who, in his line, was preeminent.
Only Harry Tracy could match the cold-blooded quality of Kid Curry. If they do take me, they'll have to shoot me from behind, for no man can kill me from the front.
Harry Severance became Harry Tracy, the outlaw, at the end of an era. He was a decade younger than Butch Cassidy, and while they were all wanted men in about the same area at about the same time, and there is lore and printed stories, there is no direct documentation, pictures, arrest records that Harry Tracy knew Butch Cassidy or was a member of the Wild Bunch. Harry Tracy did verifiably run with men who undoubtedly knew Cassidy, men like Judge Bennett, Pat Johnson, Gunplay Maxwell, and likely David Lamb. But Harry Tracy's indelible, unassailable association with the Wild Bunch is not a daring train robbery or a harrowing bank heist. It is the murder of Valentine Hoy.
Valentine Hoy murdered, leader of the law and order crowd. Friends of Valentine Hoy string up his murderers. The murdered man was a prominent ranchman, and his sad ending.
This is Harry Tracy's central connection and indisputable place in the story of the Wild Bunch. It was the brazen murder of Valentine Hoy that would galvanize governors and form posses from 3 states. It was Harry Tracy's bullet that echoed the end of the outlaw trail.
Officers and citizens, hunt the outlaws down!
But the name the Wild Bunch itself was assigned by the Pinkerton Detective Agency to target a loose confederate of sometimes accomplices. Butch Cassidy had proposed the Train Robbers Syndicate, a name to encompass the regional gangs numbering over 200 men that included the likes of Kid Curry, the Sundance Kid, Flat-Nosed George Curry, the Powder Springs Gang, the Robbers Roost Gang, and the Diamond Mountain Boys, to name a few. This famous picture of the core members of the Wild Bunch, taken in Texas after they robbed a bank in Winnemucca, Nevada, proved to be the outlaws' biggest mistake. The Pinkerton Detective Agency was creating modern law enforcement techniques, collecting pictures and building profiles, marking banknotes, tracking money, and men. If Harry Tracy had any major or notable scores, train robbing, bank jobs, or any large financially successful crimes, it has eluded the annals of history. Harry Tracy's truly outstanding and violent skills as an outlaw only came to light after he broke out of prison, and then broke out again, and again, and again. A half-century after Tracy's manhunt, Ralph Dudley, vice president of the Pinkerton National Detective Agency, declared,
Harry Tracy, by all odds, was the most cunning and dangerous of the whole bad bunch.
What is historically verifiable is that on the 8th of July, 1897, Harry Tracy was arrested for breaking into a house owned by Henry B. Smith. July 10th, Justice of the Peace Alfred L. Booth sentenced Harry Tracy to 1 year. July 11th, Harry went to prison for the first time.
In the good old summertime, played by the Edison Military Band.
So if you watch that whole video, you're pretty cool.
The preceding was one part of a 9-part project. To watch the next part, click here. Or to view the entire Harry Tracy documentary, click here.
Well, that's just damn good news.